Thank you so much to everybody here for this beautiful celebration. I'm Catherine Lewis. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as director in the Disability Services Office at RIT, but I am also a very proud alumnus of this institution. And I want to ask you to go on a bit of a thought experiment with me for the next few minutes or so. So, when we think about disability, I think we think about things like deficit, challenge, difficulty, pity, struggle. Am I on the right track? Does that seem resonant with the dominant narrative you might have encountered in your life, whether or not you agree, right? And so I'm going to ask us to think a little bit differently for a moment, and I want you to bear with me and sort of suspend that dominant narrative and think about disability in a new way. So could we take out with the recycling the notion that disability is deficit, the notion that it's something to be concerned about, troubled about, trying to fix, and instead consider disability as necessary creativity, perhaps. As someone who inhabits this world with a disability, I have learned necessarily to take more creative paths through the world. That's been an incredible asset, both as a musician, as a professional, as a parent, right? Disability taught me that. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about some other interesting perspectives on disability, not just my own. So there's an image of a really incredible individual on the screen here. His name is Neil Marcus. Neil is a poet, a choreographer, a playwright, and an artist. Neil's perspective on disability really resonates with me. He says, disability is not a brave struggle or courage in the face of adversity. Disability is an art. It's an ingenious way to live. Think about that for a moment. It's an ingenious way to live. It's an art. It's creative. It's interesting. It's powerful. Doesn't that feel a little bit different than the stigma that we so often encounter? Doesn't that feel a little bit more hopeful? I can tell you as a proud disabled woman, it sits very well with me. So thanks to Neil for that. Another person I want to introduce you to is Haben Girma. Haben is a fierce civil rights attorney. Haben identifies as deafblind and was the first deafblind woman to graduate from Harvard Law. She is to be reckoned with, my goodness. And in her most recent publication, her new autobiography, she says, disability is an opportunity for innovation. Eastman is a place founded on creativity and innovation. That is what we're here to do, to think differently, to think in powerful, new, innovative, and creative ways about connection and community and expression. Disability is an opportunity for that, right? So we're starting to think a little bit differently about this thing that so often we are afraid of. So often we other, unintentionally or not, right, and separate ourselves from or try to fix. Let's keep getting rid of that for a moment here. And I want you to consider a couple things. If we really lean into this philosophy of disability as creativity, as innovation, as an art, let's think about something together. Where is our creative capacity located? As a flutist, for example, is my ability to be an artist located in my instrument? I don't think so. As a woman with CP, right, my diagnosis, if you're getting medical about it, is spastic diplegic CP, meaning that my lower body is most strongly impacted. Now, that's on paper. In real life, we know the knee bone's connected to the hip bone. Everything is connected, right? So I am a whole person experiencing this disability. This finger and I, for many years of my life, especially during my time in my doctoral degree, were nemesis. We don't get along very well, right? As instrumentalists, often we call ourselves small muscle athletes, right? This particular finger wasn't up to snuff. And I can't tell you how many hours of my life, probably a cumulative year, I would say, I spent G to A flat, dun, da, dun, da, dun, da, dun, trying to get this finger to do what it wouldn't organically do, right? But is my artistic capacity located in this damn pinky finger? I don't think so, right? My ability to be an artist, to be creative, is inherent, right? And we've got to find different ways to increase the accessibility of this so important work that we do. So let's talk about tools for a minute. Instruments are tools, okay? You notice that I rolled my way up onto this stage. That's a tool for access. If I tried to come around the other way, we run into a bit of a barrier. But you simply accommodate. You create a different way up. And here I am, okay? So one of the three pictures on the screen here is a picture of side-by-side two flute bodies. The bottom one is mine. If you looked at it real closely, you'd notice a couple little sliver keys that aren't on a typical or standardized flute. When I was late in my doctoral program here, I worked with an instrument technician to modify my instrument to let me do some of the work of this finger, my nemesis, with other parts of my hands. And I remember the first time I trilled from G to A flat with fluency and comfort, and it was just like the biggest breath of fresh air I ever took. I'm in tears in a practice room just trilling for like a half an hour. It was a beautiful moment, right? And all it was an access adaptation. It was an accommodation that took some technical ingenuity to figure out, a really awesome repair technician, and suddenly my instrument was accessible to me. But interestingly, how often have you encountered a musician who's done that, who's made their instrument more fitting and suited to them? There's a lot of fear of that. Is your instrument truly the thing that's sacred, or is the work you do with it the sacred thing, right? So let's think about that. What could be? Imagine what could be if we had a department for accessible music making, adaptable instruments, right? The second image on the screen is a series of keyboards built to be different sizes, meant to accommodate different hand spans. Everybody can play Rachmaninoff, okay? And all it is an adjustment to the size of the keyboard. I don't think it compromises your artistic integrity, your artistic capacity. It simply makes that tool more accessible to you. Powerful, right? The third picture on the screen is a saxophonist. His name is David Knabb, and he teaches at University of Nebraska-Kearney. In the middle of his career, David experienced a stroke, and as a result of that stroke, lost the use of one side of his body. For a saxophonist, that's pretty intense, right? You got to use two hands to navigate the full range of your instrument, or do you? What David did is worked actually with the same technician who modified my flute to build what's called a toggle key saxophone mechanism. Imagine for a minute 3 columns of keys. The outer column controls the work of the right hand, the inner column in the middle, the work of the left hand, and the column on the outside, the work of both hands. So suddenly you have the full range of the instrument in a toggle mechanism that you can navigate with a single hand. Cool, right? David has established now a one-handed woodwind department in Nebraska, where folks are allowing for access to flute playing, to clarinet playing, to saxophone playing, to bassoon playing with a hand. We know about one-handed pianists, right? Let's keep it going, folks. Let's increase the accessibility of the tools we use. And I know from being an alumnus of this institution, the amount of capacity and creativity that lives here. Let's direct some of it that way. What could be? Whose voices are we missing out on because we're not flexible enough yet about the accessibility of the tools we use? Now, another thing I'd like to think through with you. Again, let's reject disability as deficit. Let's think about it as a fund of knowledge that matters and is impactful because of, and not in spite of, its impact on folks' lives. I am who I am, for example, because of my identity as a disabled woman, how it shapes the opportunities I've had, the perspectives I hold, what matters to me. I am here because of that identity, not in spite of it. There's no shame in it. I am very proud to say the word. Disability is a fund of knowledge. So first, when I was here at Eastman, I was working pretty hard on a project called Music of Difference, trying to use disability as source material in music. And so there was a composition that I worked with a local composer to create that used the movement of my body, the atypical, unique movement of my body, as rhythm source material. He mapped out my body moving in space. He put points on all the parts of me that move and tracked it in real time and turned those points and the amount it took to get from one to the other into rhythm. That actually became the foundational material for a concerto that he wrote for me. And in that piece, what happened is we started to listen to disability and let it be beautiful. Let it be interesting, let it be creative, and let it not be so scary, right? Disability as something to lean into, not away from. So what happens when we listen to it, when we embrace it, when we think differently about it? Another idea. Our own Dave Hedlum in the music theory department at the Eastman School of Music has done some powerful scholarship on music theory and disability. A question for you. How can we let our understanding of music history and music theory be influenced by disability? Dave's perspective in this article, Learning to Hear Autistically, I think is really compelling. So, neurodivergent folks, one of the things that we can sort of generalize about their life experiences is serial, consistent, really organized thinking, ways of understanding the world. So the question Dave asked is, how can an autistic worldview, how can autistic thinking and processing of the world help us better understand serial music? If we learn to hear autistically, do we have a deeper, better, richer understanding of post-tonal serial music? I think so. Disability as a fund of knowledge. And lastly, as we think toward the next 100 years of this incredible institution, I want us to imagine for a minute what could be, what would happen in this place if we positioned ourselves at the forefront of access to the arts. What would we gain if we welcomed students, faculty, and staff who identify as members of the disability community? What perspectives, what innovations would we bring to this place in our next century that we don't yet have? I want to leave you with that. I want you to imagine what could be if we stop being so fearful of difference, lean into it, and let us shape it in the next century to come. So I thank you for the opportunity to share those thoughts. I know there's more to come. Rafi right over there, class of 2022, you're in the home stretch. Eastman student body president is next, so I will succeed my time up here to you, sir. Come on up, okay? And thank you very much.